Okay, I've got to do a video on this because God, I don't know how many times I've seen this, and it is an absolute mess to try and fix sometimes. What I was doing to this radio is, other than basically a restoration, a lot of change all the electrolytic capacitors, make sure it's good working radio, transceiver alignment. But the customer wanted this, the mic plug changed over to a 4-pin, because this had, as you can see, a 3-pin plug. So he wanted to change it over to standard 4-pin, Cobra, Ranger, Galaxy style mic wiring, which is a common request. I removed the old jack, went to install the new one, went to tighten it up, and the more I tightened, the more I realized this faceplate was starting to buckle. Not so much the faceplate, but the bezel, but this actual plate. These are aluminum. These are not stickers. They're a thin piece of aluminum sheet metal, and then they have the lettering silk screened on them. The problem is, apparently it had fallen off at some point in time, which is no problem. That's extremely easy to fix. The problem is how somebody installed that aluminum plate. They tried to do it with hot glue, and that would be all of this, some of it. I pulled some of it back out of the trash can, but this is what and you can see how thick the glue was, okay? You see that? I'm on focus. Focus camera. There we go. It's the glue layer should be about the thickness of a sheet of paper behind that faceplate. It shouldn't be, that thick. And that was the problem. The faceplate, or that aluminum plate, was buckling because there wasn't glue here. There was a big blob here. There was a big blob here. So you go to tighten the mic jack up, and the aluminum starts to buckle, and anywhere I pushed along here, it was buckled. Now, it's not uncommon when those pop off that there'll be a slight bow to it, or a little bit of a bend. You get it straightened out, but it's almost impossible to get them perfectly flat again. So when you glue them in, they'll still have a wave to them. The easy way to do away with that wave is what you see right there. Tape and paper. That's other than the glue. Now use a good glue. I use a glue that hopefully will never ever dry out, unlike the glue. And the reason these pop off is the type of glue they used kind of reminds me of, I guess you'd call it Duco cement. It's a really hard stuff, and after several decades, because this is a 23 channel radio, so this is from mid to early 70s. Probably I'd say mid 70s, 74, 75. But anyhow, that glue's dried out. That's some old shit. So the proper thing to do is, now you can leave the old glue on there because it's not going to take you forever, but it would take a really long time to scrape all of it off. But like I say, it's an extremely thin glue layer. The problem is you don't want to use hot glue. The problem with hot glue is it's great for gluing stuff together. Don't get me wrong. I use hot glue all the time. Hot glue is good for, holding wires in place inside of the radio. It has its places, but this is not one of them. And the problem is, by the time you start applying your hot glue, you put a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, 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 and here. Well, by the time you then grab your plate and go to stick it in there, it's already started to dry, or not dry, but it's started to solidify. It's getting hard. Or it is already hard here, and it's still soft and on this side. So it's crooked. Easiest thing to do, use a good glue. Have got stuck on this stuff. I get it at, I think it's the Lowe's. Usually buy 4 or 5 bottles of this stuff at a time. I use so much of it now. It's a Loctite Go-To glue in the glue department. But it's a very strong, it reminds you kind of silicone, but has a much higher holding strength. And it is harder. It's harder than silicone is, but it doesn't dry rock hard. It stays rubbery, but this stuff sticks to anything, and it works really well. But the thing is, that doesn't, like hot glue, as it cools down, it gets hard and loses its sticking properties. That stuff has a fairly long set time, which is good and bad. Good because it allows you time to position things. Bad, it takes so long to dry. The faceplate can pop back out. So what you do to hold it in so it that piece of metal stays in there flat, just get some Scotch tape, masking tape. Doesn't really matter what you use, black tape, electrical tape. Just you need some tape. But take some old pieces of paper, roll them up, and then fold them up into just little blocks. And you're going to use those as clamping cauls. If you're familiar with woodworking, that's a term you'll be familiar with, but clamping cauls, that's basically what you're doing. You're making clamping cauls like you'd use when you're doing veneer work, which is basically what you're doing. You're applying the aluminum veneer to this faceplate bezel. So you just make those up, hold it in there, put a piece of tape, stick it on the bottom, which is what I did. Put the little balled up piece of paper in there, and then tightly, because these are fairly tight. You can hear like a banjo string, but hold that in, pull the tape up over it and down over, and that holds pressure in while the glue dries. Let it set like that for about an hour. Take it off. Your radio's fine. That trim piece will never ever come back off. But that's the trick to getting it so it stays, and it stays flat. Because this one, I'd push in here, 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 and by the time I got over to this end, I could see this end was starting to come back out a little bit. So there's the whole trick to getting these things in when they have a slight bit of a warp to them, to getting them back in so they stay flat until the glue dries. Just doesn't take much. Some scrap paper and a little bit of tape. So hope that little quick tip helps somebody.